and welcome to my kitchen. In today's video, I've got a few breakfast ideas to share with you. These would be perfect for Christmas morning breakfast, for New Year's Eve brunch, or just for any occasion, especially for company. All of these would be delicious and they're easy. So let me show you how to make these. First up, I'm making oven-baked hotel-style eggs. Now, I had these years and years ago at a lady's house. She invited a bunch of women over from church, and we had brunch. And she made these, and they were so yummy, and they absolutely reminded me of the scrambled eggs that we had going to like Sunday brunches at hotels or to their breakfast buffet. Now, these are really easy to put together. They do take a little bit of babysitting, but they are totally worth it. So let me show you how to make these. Here are the ingredients for like the base recipe, and of course you can add whatever additional ingredients you'd like. We of course need eggs, some salt and pepper, butter, and then I've got some heavy whipping cream on hand, so I'm going to use that. That is going to make them really nice and creamy. You could use half and half or milk if you would prefer to do that. I've got the oven preheating to 350 degrees. In this baking dish, I'm going to add in my melted butter and give that a swirl. Now, I halved the recipe, so I'm using like a 9x9. The original recipe makes a 9x13, but you can easily double or triple this depending on how many guests you're serving. So once I've got that buttered, I'm going to set that to the side, and then in my mixing bowl, I'm going to add in my eggs, the cream, or again, half and half or milk, whatever you want to use. I'm going to add my salt and pepper and then whisk that really well. Now, the more you whisk these, the lighter and fluffier your eggs will be. So if you like them more dense, just whisk them just a little. But if you want them fluffier, whisk in a little more air. So once I've got them whisked to my liking, I'm going to pour them into my casserole dish. And then this is going to go into the oven and bake for about 10 to 12 minutes or until the eggs start to set. At this point, I'm going to pull my oven rack out, and you want to leave this in the oven so that it keeps as much heat as possible. And you want to work kind of quickly, but we're going to take a spatula and just kind of gently push and pull the eggs back and forth. And this is going to form large curds. Now, we're going to repeat this maybe 2 or 3 times every 8 minutes or so until the eggs are cooked to your liking. You do want to pull them out when they look a little bit wet because they will continue to cook. And so if you pull them out when they look done, as they sit, they'll kind of get overdone a little bit. Now, mine took about 18 to 20 minutes or so, and this is what they look like when they were done. At this point, you can add in some cheese. You could fold in some cooked ham, chorizo, bacon, cooked onions, peppers, mushrooms, whatever you'd like, but I'm just keeping them simple. I garnish with some chopped green onions, and these are so light, so fluffy, delicious. Next up, I'm making $1 Million bacon. Now, this recipe is perfect for company because it is just what the name sounds like. It's bacon that tastes like $1 million. Now, I'll have this recipe and the other recipes from today's video linked in my description box below. Here are the ingredients that we're going to need. First up, you'll need bacon. Strongly suggest thick cut bacon for this recipe. If you use a thin cut bacon, more than likely it will burn on you. So try to get thick cut if you can. We're also going to use some brown sugar, maple syrup, cayenne pepper, fresh cracked black pepper, and then the recipe that I was using called for red pepper flakes. I forgot to set them out, but between the cayenne and black pepper, you really didn't need it anyway. All right, let me show you how to put this together. I've got the oven preheating to 350 degrees. I've lined a couple baking sheets with some parchment paper. Trust me on this, you want to line it with either parchment paper or aluminum foil. The bacon fat and sugars in this will not make for an easy cleanup. So do yourself a favor, line it before you get this in the oven. Once I've got the bacon laid out into a single layer, we're going to put together the sugar mixture. So in this bowl, I'm going to add the brown sugar, syrup, cayenne pepper, and black pepper, and I'm going to mix that until it's combined really well. Now, a quick note, We like spicy food, but this was like right on the edge of being a little too spicy. So I would suggest cutting back on the cayenne pepper, maybe having it. If you are kind of sensitive to pepper, I would even maybe quarter it. But it was really, really good. If you love really spicy foods, leave the full amount. But for company, especially for kiddos, I'd have the amount of cayenne. So once I have rubbed that sugar mixture on the top of the bacon, you don't have to worry about doing both sides, just do the top side. We're going to place this into the preheated oven, and then this is going to bake for maybe about 20-25 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. Pull it out when it reaches your desired crispiness. Now here's what it looked like when it was done. The recipe suggested that at this point you place it on some wire racks to allow some of that fat to drain off. So that's what I did. And then to serve it up, just place it on a serving platter. This is so delicious. It's addictive with the salty bacon, the sweet, the little bit of spice. So, so yummy. It goes with those hotel style eggs perfectly. They bake at the same temperature, so it's a great pair. Next, I made a Christmas fruit salad, and it's named this because we're going to use all red and green fruit. Now, here's the fruit that I'm going to use. Totally use whatever fruit you and your guests prefer or what you've got on hand. I am going to use some pomegranates, apples, strawberries, kiwi, green grapes. And then for the dressing for the salad, we're going to need some honey, orange juice, and poppy seeds. So to my bowl, I'm going to take my grapes, and you want to make sure they're seedless for this particular salad. I sliced them in half. For the large ones, I quartered them. Once I've got those added to the bowl, I'm going to add in my strawberries. I just sliced off the green and then cut the strawberries into slices and added those. Next, I'm going to add the kiwi. So what I like to do is cut off the ends of the kiwi and then just use a little paring knife to get rid of that skin. And then I'm just going to cut those into chunks. Now, for the apples, what I like to do for fruit salads like this is cut the apples into quarters and then take my knife and cut into each quarter at an angle to get rid of the core and the seeds. Next, I'm going to add in my pomegranate seeds. Now, you can normally find pomegranate seeds in the grocery stores. Mine were out, so I just took a fresh pomegranate, sliced it in half, and then beat it. I know that sounds awful, but that's basically what you do. Just beat it with a wooden spoon, and the seeds will pop right out. So I'm going to stir all of the fruit really well and then set that to the side. Now, in a smaller bowl, I'm going to add my orange juice, the honey, the poppy seeds. Whisk that until it's combined really well, and then we're going to pour that over the fruit, give that a toss, and then place this into the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. That just gives it a little bit of time for all of the flavors to come together. And once again, use whatever fruit you like. I think raspberries would be good in this, and pears would be really yummy. All right, here is what the fruit salad looks like when it's done. This was delicious, so yummy, and I loved the pomegranate seeds in this. First of all, it looked so pretty and so festive. They look like little jewels. And second of all, as you ate the fruit salad, they kind of popped in your mouth. Yummy. Last but not least, I'm going to show you how I make the Pioneer Woman's cinnamon rolls and her orange roll variation. Now, if you've ever seen her make these on her TV show or on the blog, you know that her recipe makes a ton of cinnamon rolls. Now, that's great if you're giving them out for gifts like she does, but if you're just making them for your family or for company, that's a lot of cinnamon roll dough. So years ago, I found a recipe that takes the Pioneer Woman's recipe and cuts the amount way down so that it makes about a dozen and a half rolls, and I've made these for years. If you've never made homemade cinnamon rolls, if you're new to baking, I find these really doable, and I'm not a baker, so I recommend you give these a try. They are delicious. All right, let me show you how to make these. We're going to start out by going over the ingredients. Here are the ingredients for the dough. This does not include the icing ingredients, and this dough is going to be the same if you're making the regular cinnamon rolls or the orange rolls. We've got some sugar, butter, all-purpose flour, milk, vegetable oil, baking powder, baking soda, salt, cinnamon, and yeast. We're going to start out by scalding the milk. Now that's just a fancy term for basically bringing the milk up until it's almost at a boil. So to the saucepan, I'm going to add the milk in as well as the vegetable oil and sugar. I'm going to give that a whisk. And then over medium heat, I'm going to heat this until the mixture just barely starts to come to a boil. Once it's there, you're going to turn the heat off and set it to the side and allow it to cool until it's just warm, about maybe 100 degrees or so in temperature. Now, once it's there, we're going to sprinkle the yeast on top, and don't give it a stir, just sprinkle it over top, and then we're going to let that sit for 1 minute. Next, we're going to add part of the flour. Now, you're going to add most of the flour here, but check the amounts in the recipe because we're going to hold off and add just a little bit of the flour later. Once we've added the flour, we're going to stir it until it's combined really well just with a wooden spoon. And then I'm going to cover this with a clean kitchen towel and set it to the side in, kind of a warm place. You could do it in maybe your laundry room or put it in your microwave with it off, of course, and allow this to sit for about an hour until it's doubled about in size. Next, I'm going to remove the kitchen towel and then add in the remaining flour as well as the salt, baking soda, and baking powder, and then stir it until it's combined really well. Now, you can use this right away like I'm going to do. You can also place this into the refrigerator for up to 3 days, the recipe says. You just want to make sure that you punch the dough down if you refrigerate it. Now, you're going to need a clean surface. I'm using this silicone pastry mat that my dad got me last year for Christmas. I'm going to sprinkle it with some flour, and then I'm going to take my dough and place it onto the mat. Now, I cut this in half just because I wanted to do some regular cinnamon rolls, some regular orange rolls, but if you're doing all cinnamon rolls or all orange rolls, you don't need to cut it in half like I did. I am going to flour my rolling pin as well and then roll that out until it's a thin rectangle. You want to make sure that the dough is pretty thin. I mean, you don't want it to be tearing, obviously. If it does a little bit on, you can just pinch it back together. And then the recipe doesn't call to do this, but I like to take a little brush and just kind of brush off as much of the excess flour as I can. Next, I'm going to add the butter, and you want to be pretty generous with the butter as well as the cinnamon and sugar. The recipe does give amounts. I just eyeball it, to be honest with you, and they turn out really yummy. So ooey and gooey. So once I've gotten the butter, cinnamon, and sugar added, I'm then going to take my fingertips and roll the dough up. I'm going to start at the end furthest away from me and roll towards me. Now, don't worry, some of the butter may ooze out a little bit. Don't worry about it at all. Just keep rolling, and when you get to the edge, you want to pinch that seam together and then flip your dough over so that the seam is down on the counter side, if that makes sense. Now, I hope this makes sense, but I like more rolls that are smaller rather than fewer jumbo size rolls. But if you want more jumbo size rolls, just don't make your rectangle as long or maybe as wide as what I did. Now, to a baking dish, I'm going to add in some melted butter that just helps them not stick. And then I'm going to slice the cinnamon roll dough. Some people use floss, not mint floss or anything, just, like plain floss. But I just use a bench scraper. I find that works well. I'm going to slice the rolls, place them into the buttered cake pan, and then I'm going to cover these with a kitchen towel and allow these to sit for about 20 or 30 minutes. Now for the orange roll variation, and if you've never had orange rolls before, I highly recommend you give them a try. They are delicious. We're going to take that same cinnamon roll dough that we used earlier, and we're going to use some brown sugar, orange marmalade, and orange zest, and then we'll use the orange juice for the icing later. So just like with the cinnamon rolls, I have floured a surface. I've rolled the dough out into a rectangle. Once I've done that, I'm going to take that orange marmalade and spread that out over the dough. Next, I'm going to take some melted butter and drizzle that over the orange marmalade. Next, the recipe says to add just a little sprinkling of salt, and just remember, salt is a flavor enhancer. It doesn't necessarily make it taste salty. Once I've got that added, I'm going to sprinkle on the brown sugar, and then just like with the other cinnamon rolls, we're going to take the dough, roll it up towards us, and again, don't worry if some of the butter and sugar ooze out. Once again, we're going to slice these into rolls, and I left these more of a jumbo size compared to the cinnamon rolls. We're going to place those into our buttered baking dish, and again, we're going to cover these with a towel and allow them to sit for about 30 minutes. Here's what the cinnamon rolls and then the orange rolls look like after they've risen a little bit. Now these are going to go into a preheated oven. This is set at 375 degrees. We're going to bake these for about 15 to 18 minutes or until they're slightly golden brown. Now for the icing. The Pioneer woman uses, I think, like a maple icing. Some people prefer cream cheese icing. This is the icing that I prefer. Just use whatever your preference is. For this particular icing, I've got some butter, salt, vanilla, powdered sugar, and milk. Now, I like to make the icing up during the last couple minutes of baking time for the rolls so that as soon as they come out of the oven, I can pour the icing over them. To this bowl, I've added in the powdered sugar. I'm going to add just in a tiny, tiny pinch of salt. Again, not enough to make it taste salty, but just to enhance the other flavors. I'm adding in the vanilla extract as well as the melted butter and then milk. Now, when you add the milk in, you want to go slowly. You most of the time don't need nearly as much milk as what you think you'll need. So once I've whisked that until there are no lumps, I'm going to set that to the side. Next, I'm going to make the orange glaze for the orange rolls. So this icing is pretty similar to the previous. We're going to add in the powdered sugar, melted butter, and the tiny little pinch of salt. But instead of the vanilla and milk, we're going to add in some orange zest and orange juice and then stir that until it's combined really well. You want to make sure all the lumps are out, and that's what this looks like. So here are the regular cinnamon rolls once they were out of the oven, and then here are the orange rolls, and all I did was drizzle that yummy, yummy icing over the cinnamon rolls and then the orange icing over the orange rolls, and that's it. Like I said earlier, these are so yummy. I've made these several times, like for church activities or to take to people, to take to friends and things like that, and everyone has loved these. And one of the things that I really love about this recipe, aside from it being easy, is that you don't have to have a stand mixer. For many years I didn't have one, and a lot of the recipes that I've seen for cinnamon rolls call for one, and so I really love that this recipe doesn't call for one. It's just basic, you can do it on top of the stove, which most people have this equipment for this recipe. So I highly recommend you give these recipes a try. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.